Alright, hello, citizens of the Nigelverse. It is Nige here once again. And if you remember a couple weeks ago, I talked about how Jay White and how he's doing in AEW, and I just had to answer the question of whether or not he was indeed being wasted in All Elite Wrestling. And I mentioned that I might do a part two. Now, I thought long and hard about doing a part two, and you know what? I decided I'd cave. This is part two to that. But instead, the question we're going to be answering is: would Jay White have done any better in WWE? How would WWE have done Switchblade Jay White? So a couple things before we begin. For starters, this is mainly speculation on my part. Right? I'm going to try to back up some of my arguments with as much fact as possible, but otherwise, these are mostly my own arguments, my own thoughts, my own feelings, my own opinions. So if you disagree with any of these, that is totally fine. And in fact, let me know in the comments what you think, as well as liking, commenting, and subscribing, of course. But the other thing is, I don't want to, and I say this quite often on the channel, and it bears repeating. This isn't a case of like a WWE versus AEW kind of thing where I'm like, hey, I mentioned before how I'm a pretty much lifelong fan of WWE, but I'm also a fan of AEW, and that's really the crux of this video is mainly a comparison. I mainly want to answer how would WWE have done things, and I'm not doing this out of like, oh, I hate AEW, oh, AEW sucks kind of thing, but I want to speculate as much as I can, and I also know that a lot of what I'm going to be talking about is like best case scenario, because there's a chance that him being in WWE could have gone way different. But with that being said, now that the preliminaries are out of the way, let's take you back to around March/April 2023, when Switchblade Jay White was no longer under contract with New Japan, and he was seeking ventures elsewhere. And and it seemed like the two main options for Jay White, where a lot of people speculate he would end up going, was either AEW or WWE. We figured it would be one of the two. A lot of people were vying for him to go to WWE. A lot of people were vying for him to go to AEW. But ultimately Jay White did pick AEW, of course, and and of course, apparently there wasn't even that much discussion about, at least throughout the WrestleMania weekend, about Jay White coming to WWE. So that led a lot of people to believe that the talks might have died down as to whether or not Jay White would actually be appearing. And sure enough, he appeared in AEW. But I mainly want to ask and answer, what would he have done in WWE? That's the main goal for this video. But also worth mentioning, this was right after like Jay White appearing on AEW. I think this was like the AEW Dynamite after WrestleMania, which is kind of weird because WrestleMania is obviously in WWE, but nevertheless, this was pretty much like right after WrestleMania. I think this was the exact Dynamite. If it wasn't the first AEW Dynamite episode after WrestleMania, then it was like pretty close to it. But I know this was right around the time where Vince McMahon popped back up with his admittedly kind of cool mustache. No, I can't even front that mustache was kind of like it was kind of there, and apparently Vince McMahon is able to grow like a beard of I forgot who described it as a beard of epic proportions, but he always shaves. He let the mustache grow in his time away for what he did and everything. But this was after Vince McMahon had popped back up and seemingly was still in the fold in WWE, hadn't fully got out just yet. In fact, he wasn't even fully out until like this year, in terms of like him finally sharing his finally selling the last of his stocks within TKO to officially fully distance himself for WWE, which has been like the best thing possible for WWE. But yeah, this was back when Vince McMahon was in the fold, so do keep that in mind. So this was the fake out of the, oh, we're finally in the Triple H era. Oh no, here comes Vince McMahon again. Oh, we're still technically in the Vince McMahon era, but a McMahon Helms era, if you will. Yeah, nevertheless, but this was before Vince McMahon was fully out of the picture, and before even more of the allegations, and like even more of the allegations, or at least more depth to the allegations, really surfaced, and that's before the really bad ones surfaced. But maybe like Nigel, why do you bring this up? Because there's a chance that could have influenced perhaps the booking of Jay White. Admittedly, Vince McMahon has always been kind of hit or miss when it comes to booking stars who made their names in a big way elsewhere. Like you do have cases like Shinsuke Nakamura and Bobby Roode, but then you also have cases like AJ Styles, where AJ Styles like came in, immediately caught fire, debuted in the Rumble, was W champion, and got not one but two victories over John Cena in his first year in WWE. He like AJ Styles was like probably one of like the best rookie years in WWE. He second only maybe to like Kurt Angle or so. But yeah, nevertheless, so this was around that time. But if we're talking Jay White coming in, maybe sticking it out, best case scenario, him sticking out until we get to the Triple H era, what would that have looked like? How would that have looked like? I will say, for starters, there's some people have argued like, oh, he'd just be in a feud with the Miz and stuff like that, which I mentioned before. Or being in the feud with the Miz isn't necessarily a bad thing. Like there's some Miz feuds that haven't gone as well, but otherwise the Miz knows how to. If he doesn't always put on 5-star matches. When he does, he definitely does, and it's not even just about him, but also the person that he works with. It takes two to tango, of course, but also the Miz does know how to put on a solid feud. Who can forget the feuds he had with Dolph Ziggler or Daniel Bryan to an extent before that kind of petered out and stuff. For even in kind of the feud he had with Gunther last year, that was a pretty solid feud from what I remember. But yeah, Miz definitely capable of putting on a good feud. Like a feud between him and Switchblade would not have been bad, and it would have been a good primer for Jay White to get his feet wet in WWE and really show what he can do. And who knows? Maybe that would have been the feud that turned Miz face, because Miz, of course, did turn babyface last year. So maybe that would have been the feud who'd perhaps like WWE type villain in the Miz versus a real villain like Switchblade. I think that might have been the angle they would have gone with, and that wouldn't have been a bad angle to go with. But Jay White going from there. But then where does Jay White go from there? And I imagine probably they might want to have him either in a feud or at least in a some type of program, and or maybe even teaming up at some point with like Finn Balor or AJ Styles or the OC. Because of course they have that Bullet Club tie, and a lot of people have talked about how it's surprising when WWE brings up like ventures in other companies such as like New Japan and stuff like that. But the thing I've noticed is WWE does bring it up when it's convenient for them, like when it's convenient to bring up the story. Like when AJ Styles faced heel Finn Balor, when Finn Balor was part of the Judgment Day, they brought up them being leaders of the Bullet Club at one point. So when it's convenient for them, WWE definitely will bring it up, and just like they did with Tama Tonga when he came in, they brought up him being a part of the Bullet Club and everything. So they'll bring it up when it's convenient for them, when it fits what they're trying to go for, and when it fits their story, like when it's and it's a solid enough add-on to the story. That's when they'll bring it up. Or of course, there's also Cody Rhodes as well, which I believe Cody and Switchblade also feuded as well in New Japan. But and I imagine things along that. But you definitely, I imagine, would want to keep Jay White heel. Well, I haven't seen. I don't think Jay White hates ever. I don't even think Jay White's ever been faced, at least from what I've researched. But from what I've researched, a lot of people do feel like he portrays a much better heel, which there are definitely people who are better at faces and heels, and who are better at heels and faces. Future video coming up soon. let me know if you guys want to see it. But Jay White as a heel, I think would definitely be the way to go. Even with kind of the head scratching booking that I promise I didn't do that on purpose. It's just my head itched right when I was getting to the word head scratching, but even in with like some of the head scratching booking that Jay White has had in AEW, he's proven that he can be a solid enough heel, and that at the heel route is definitely the way to go. So I imagine wanting to go the heel route for Jay White, and I imagine probably put him in the mid card title picture for the time being before you move him up to the world title picture, or because that's usually how it goes, and of course that's kind of the whole point of the mid card title is it primes people for or the it primes people for the upper card for like the main event scene, and it looks like Cody Rhodes and Jay White. I just looked it up. It doesn't look like they've faced. So perhaps that could be one of the feuds he has. But I also gotta I also do want to see exactly his Jay White's accolades, of course, as well as whether or not he's even been faced. I'm sure he probably has at one point. But yeah, so things along those lines, and I imagine would be the direction they want to go with Jay White. And the thing about WWE is that they usually, with some exceptions, usually things are built up gradually. Like, there are people that they've pushed to the moon way too soon, and sometimes it's paid off. Sometimes it has paid off, but other times it has crashed and burned. But I imagine with Jay White, you'd want it to be gradual, and I think that would be the best case scenario. Oh, so I guess they're counting his kind of association with the Acclaim slash the Bang Bang Scissor Gang as him technically being faced, which, fair enough. But otherwise, he was faced when he started off, but then became heel, and then Tweener, and even they're showing like Tweener when he was having an association with the Acclaim. And shouts out to the SmackDown Hotel for keeping track of heel and face turns, because I know I definitely can, because my memory kind of sucks sometimes. I just want to see how many they have for the Big Show, but I'll look that up later. But yeah, I imagine that'd be the best case scenario for Jay White. Show what he can do, build him up, and consider him for the world title picture. And Jay White, I would say, is a big enough name to make sense for being in the world championship picture, especially now that we do have the World Heavyweight Championship. Obviously now that Cody is Universal Champion, and now that Roman doesn't have quite the stranglehold on the Universal Championship anymore, obviously that frees up more spot and can lead to more feuds and stuff. But the World Heavyweight Championship changing hands a bit more or often than its Universal Championship counterpart, at least since its inception. And or actually, actually, there's maybe been one other World Heavyweight Champion so far, and that's because of the cash in, and of course, but. Yeah, so varying up a little bit, having Jay White go after the World Heavyweight Championship, I don't think would be a bad move. As for whether or not he can have his own stable, whether or not you give him his own stable, I think it'd be cool if he got his own stable, if he had like a Bullet Club within WWE, or try to establish a Bullet Club and then kind of do Bullet Club versus Bullet Club, although they kind of already did that with AJ Styles and Finn Balor, so it would be a bit redundant. But yeah, so I think that definitely would be the preferred way to go when it comes to how to book Jay White. And admittedly, I talked about his experience in AEW. Admittedly, some of those things did kind of happen, are what they kind of did with him. He was in the World Championship picture. He faced MJF for the title at Full Gear, but otherwise, it just didn't quite feel as big a deal as he should. And would he hit the star treatment he's deserving of in WWE? It's a possibility. I imagine and he's someone that they probably wouldn't want to be lost in the shuffle. He's a big enough name to where he definitely wouldn't want him to be lost in the shuffle. He probably, although there is a chance he might have to share the spotlight with a number of guys such as like Seth Rollins or Roman Reigns or Cody Rhodes. Even though that's obviously freed up and taken up by like Sosa Cola and the new Bloodline in Roman's absence, but otherwise, yeah. But that's speculation for my part. Do I think Jay White will be in WWE someday? It's hard to tell. There's a possibility, but for now we will see. But yeah, that's kind of my that I think is kind of my speculation. And admittedly, I was kind of all over the place, and B, that is mostly speculation. And I think that's probably how I do it: is gradually build him up. Definitely give him some wins. You definitely want to give him some wins and give him some big enough feuds. Like you can have him feud with some like the smaller names on the roster, but then and you gradually build him up toward the bigger names until he starts working with like main eventers and stuff like that. And definitely, and like I said, definitely don't want to give him too much too soon. Think I think him going after the world championship within his first year in AEW was kind of a double edged sword, because on one hand, and it did show, or at least they tried to show, that they were treating him like a big deal, but then all you can go from there is down, and that's seemingly where Jay White has gone, is kind of down. But nevertheless, as that is enough from me. That's enough rambling from me. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, please do me a favor: like, comment, subscribe, share with your friends, and turn on post notifications so you know every time I upload a video, so you can see the drops. And let me know in the comments. Two things. So let me know two things. First of all, how would you book Jay White in WWE? Or actually three things. First of all, how would you book Jay White in WWE? Second is, do you think he's faring better now in AEW than he potentially would have in WWE? And the third thing is, do you think Jay White will be in WWE someday? But nevertheless, thank you all so much for watching. I'll see you guys later. Peace.